Incredible, simple, and free. You want to build leaders, you want to build a great culture. I actually did this and it worked. And it worked. I had no budget, I had no resources, I didn't have approval from the C-suite. I was hired by a company, a Fortune 500 company, one of the most well-known retail organizations on the planet, actually, to help them turn around their biggest distribution center. A couple thousand people, and the morale was awful, productivity was awful, quality, everything about the place was horrible. No one wanted to work there. No one, everything was awful. Turnover was awful. Cost and everything about the place wasn't going well. And like I said, no budget, no resources, no approval from the C-suite. Just, hey, go in there and make the place run better, And I thought, well, here's the problem. The problem is culture. Because anytime there's mediocrity, anytime there's below mediocrity, anytime there's consistently poor results, it's always a leadership and a culture problem. A sports team that loses repeatedly. I shouldn't even say this out loud, but I was a Knicks fan for quite a while, and the Knicks just had this culture of not winning. And I didn't go to their practices, but I could guess that their practices were not the same as a team that wins year after year after year after year. Tom Brady just announced he's going to retire. Why did Tom Brady's teams win year after year after year after year? Tom Brady has a different set of expectations. Yeah, there's talent. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff involved, but a big piece of it is, number one, the leadership, number two, the culture, but they're really co-number ones. They go together. So I'm in this organization, and I don't have a budget, don't have the resources, don't really have C-suite approval, and I'm thinking, I want to build leaders. I want to build a great culture. How can I do that? Well, this is what I did, and it was simple, and it was incredible, and it was effective. I started, and it's so simple, I shouldn't even say this. I'm hesitant to say it because so often people that do what I do, that write books and speak and coach and work with organizations, so often, we want to almost like the Wizard of Oz. We want to keep some of the stuff behind the curtain. We want to do what the big consulting firms do, where you say, well, we're going to use our proprietary blank. But I'm going to tell you, I started with a small group of people. I got to know some of the people. I spent some time, I invested some time getting to know some of the people. And I said, who are the people here that have the potential to have a positive impact, to have the potential to influence some of this culture? Who are the people that care? And I found a small group. And I said, you know what, let's not have a rival syndrome. Let's not be, we're good enough. Good is the enemy of great. Good is good enough. Let's not be that. Let's become better personally, and let's build the organization to become better. And how could we do this? I said, why don't we once a week get together for just a blink of time, maybe a half an hour, maybe 20 minutes. Maybe sometimes it's longer than that. And it quite often was. And what would we do? I said, why don't we just do a book discussion with 2 questions? A book discussion with 2 questions. And I'll talk about some of the books we dove into, but it almost doesn't matter because of the 2 questions. See, the 2 questions are, what's the message you needed to hear from that book? And how are you doing with that? What's the message or what's the lesson you needed to hear from that book this week? And how are you doing with that? And as we meet, and we do it every week, and like I said, sometimes it was 20 minutes, sometimes it was a half an hour, sometimes it was longer. Quite often what happened is it was only a few minutes, but then throughout that week, we might be bumping into each other saying, yeah, the biggest thing I needed to hear this week was this, and what I'm doing with it, how am I doing with it, what am I doing with it, is, I'm trying to do this. Simple example. We could read Pat Lencioni's book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. Classic, brilliant book, so simple. And we could just say, you know what? We don't have enough healthy conflict. We don't have enough healthy conflict. And the one message from the book, and it could be more than a week, could be a few weeks, could be, what do I need to hear from that book? I need to hear, I need to encourage, I need to initiate, I need to allow, I need to facilitate more healthy conflict. And how are you doing with that? Well, how am I doing with that? Today we had a meeting and people were just buying into these numbers, and I knew that we needed to question them. And I kept thinking healthy conflict. And I finally looked up and I said, hold on a second. I don't know, but it sounds like some of the numbers, some of them might not be right. Some of the promises we're making, they look like they might be a little bit unreasonable. Maybe we're setting ourselves. Maybe we're setting the next shift. Maybe we're setting the next department, the shipping department, or maybe we're setting that next department up for failure. See, we started this simple process without a budget, without resources, without C-suite approval, and it became a cultural transformation because this small group of people, just once a week, they dig into a book. They didn't read the book during the session. Sometimes they would. People would come with things highlighted from that section of the book. And sometimes we'd pick a book. We picked books like How to Win Friends and Influence People. And we'd just take it one chapter. And I'll never forget, one of the people in that small group said, "Oh, we're reading this chapter about smiling." And he said, "Wow. I don't smile." I'm trying. And it had a radical impact on his leadership, on his organization, but ultimately it had a radical impact on that entire organization. A few thousand people, the worst performing distribution center in a Fortune 100 company. And it turned it completely around. In less than 2 years, went from worst to first in virtually every key metric. And it started with a simple idea. No budget, no resources, no approval from the C-suite. It started with the simple idea of, really, I asked the question for almost 20 years now, who are you becoming? And who are you helping the people around you to become? And do you really need something complicated to make that journey? See, most of us, I think we like to pretend that we really need something complicated. I had a mentor years ago, and he loved to say this. He loved to say, most of us lead complicated lives to avoid changing them. You don't need to be part of a big company to do something with this idea. You could do it with a friend of yours. If you don't have a friend that'll do it with you, do it with me. Tell me you're reading a book. Shoot me an email. Say, Jonathan, I'm reading this book. This week I'm going to read this chapter, or maybe not even a whole chapter, maybe just one little tiny subsection. And it could be a business book, could be a leadership book, could be an autobiography, could be a biography. It could be all kinds of books. We read a book called The Servant, about servant leadership. What an amazing book. We read a book by the Arbinger Institute called Leadership and Self-Deception. What an incredible book to give you some mirror moments. I love to call them frying pan moments, where you get hit over the head with the frying pan and it wakes you up and you realize, wow, I needed to hear that. I need to try to do something with that now. Pick somebody in your world and try this. Try it just for a few weeks. Pick a book. Dive into the book. It doesn't even have to be a book. Could be an article online. Could be a YouTube video. Could be a TED Talk. Could be some little clip of your favorite speaker or author. Could be one of your favorite people from history. Dive in there, read one little thing and say, wow, what's the message? What's the lesson? What's the challenge for me right now, where I am right now in this? And how am I really doing with that? Game changer. Leadership changer. Culture changer.